Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and consultant here at Boomer Consulting. And with me today is Amanda Wilkie. Amanda, thank you for being on this episode of the podcast.
Always enjoy being here and chatting with you, Jon. So thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. And we have a fun topic today, and that is talking about big shifts that have happened in the area of process. I think we're actually, when this episode is released, it's going to be at the very beginning of January. And it's a great opportunity to look back at 2022 and look ahead at 2023 around this topic. So, Amanda, what is or are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in the area of process this year?
Well, first of all, Jon, how is it almost 2023 already? That's crazy. But it's been a busy year. It's been a busy year. We've worked with a lot of firms on process improvement, and I would really highlight two things that I've seen in the area of process, not just in 2022, but kind of leading up to 2022. And the first one leading up to 2022, and even now, we're seeing the shift from, hey, we really need to use process improvement to create efficiency in our processes. We're moving away from that, and we're looking at how process can help build capacity for your firm. So how process can, build capacity for the individuals within your firm, how it can support those individuals. So really how process can help not only support the firm, but support the talent that you have. We've all heard about the talent wars and the struggle to keep good talent. So we're looking at what can process do to help support your staff, help create capacity for them to work on more value-added things and decrease, the work and the stress levels that they have. So to summarize, I think one of the things that we're seeing is really how does process not only create efficiency within your processes, but how does it help create capacity for the talent that you have in your firm? So that's one big shift that we're seeing. I would say the big change in focus for process is not just looking at compliance processes. So we're no longer just looking at how do we improve our 1040 process or how do we improve our audit process. We're starting to see firms look at process improvement outside of those compliance areas and sometimes outside of client service areas and client service processes. So firms are looking at how do we improve our billing process and our AR process? How do we improve our onboarding process, our onboarding of clients, our onboarding of staff, which, keep in mind, Jon, we're now, hybrid and remote firms. So the process for that has definitely changed. Same for offboarding. How do we offboard staff in a remote environment more efficiently and more timely as well? So again, that second focus area or shift that we're seeing is firms aren't just working or looking at their compliance processes, they're looking at processes throughout the firm as well.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that a lot. So I've been taking some notes here. So I have a couple things that I think are really interesting from what you highlighted. And that is that shift from efficiency to capacity. Now, what's interesting for me is that, obviously I get to talk to you all the time, Amanda, and we get to talk, I guess you could say, behind the scenes in terms of all the client engagements you're doing in the area of process. And I know you and our other process consultants over the years have been wanting firms to actually make this mindset shift anyways, from efficiency to capacity. But what's been really interesting is what you were highlighting related to the talent constraints that they're feeling this year is now getting them to make that shift, Whereas I think you would probably have wanted firms to make that kind of mindset shift anyways, even if there wasn't
Yeah.
talent constraints. Is that fair to say, Amanda?
Oh, absolutely. The truth of the matter is, John, very few firms change for change's sake. They change when there's really a pain point. They change when they're really feeling that pain. And I think that is one of the drivers behind that shift is, the challenges that we're facing now in these remote environments, the challenges that we're facing from, the individual's mind shift change. We don't want to work 60, 70 hours a week. We don't want to work on data entry type of tasks. We want to be more engaging. We want to have better relationships with our clients and with each other. And those things are becoming more and more difficult. Again, you're onboarding people that have never stepped foot inside of your actual office, and they may work for your firm their entire tenure there at your firm. They may never step inside of your office. So how do you build that connection? How do you build that culture? How do you make them feel like they're part of the team from day one if you don't have them there face to face? And how do you make it not only efficient, but how do you make it inclusive as well? And again, build those connections. And one way of doing that is through process. And it's, again, not always about efficiency. In this case, it's actually about building that connection faster and deeper with those new employees. So yeah, those pain points that we're feeling from a talent standpoint is one of the drivers in that mindset shift.
Yeah, and you're talking a lot about employee experience as it relates to this. So I just kind of wrote down, maybe from the process lens, firms have been focused on it from a compliance perspective historically, right? Those tax and audit processes. So I'm kind of summarizing what I believe you shared. And then it started shifting to maybe more client experience, but other types of services where there's a lot of interaction with the client. And now everyone's saying, if it doesn't improve the employee experience, I don't care what it is, whether it's process related or not, should we even be doing it at this point? because we're so focused on attraction and retention of talent that if it doesn't check that box, it's really hard to get firms to prioritize it at this point. Are you seeing something similar?
Exactly, John. And even when we work with firms on compliance processes and improving those, 99.9% of the time, one of the objectives of that process improvement project is to improve the employee experience. It is to, create that capacity, make sure that they're working on higher value add tasks, and they have that time to build the connections internally as well as with their clients. So whether you are working on a staff onboarding or a compliance type of process, the impact to the staff and the staff experience is always top of mind for firms right now. So I would encourage firms, if they are struggling with staff retention, if they are struggling with that staff experience, client experience too, we can bundle these two things together. It's time to look at your processes across the board, those internal processes, those compliance processes. There's a lot of opportunity to simply improve your client experience and your staff experience through process improvement.
Yeah. And so as firms look to 2023, and you just hit on a bunch of great things for firms to think about for 2023. Is that maybe your big takeaway for them, that focus in areas of process improvement that both improve the client experience as well as the employee experience? And with keeping an eye on any process improvement initiatives need to increase capacity within the organization as well? Or would you add to that?
The only thing I would add to that, John, is that now at the beginning of 2023 is the time to start planning for process improvement. You really can't wait until, the dust settles from tax season and then it's Memorial Day. And now you want to start talking about process improvement. You really do need to start thinking about it and start planning for it at the end of the year. Because what's going to happen is April 15th is going to hit and everyone's going to be exhausted. The pain's going to be fresh, but people aren't going to have that mental capacity, that emotional capacity to really take it on. So start planning for it now. And that actually helps people if they know that we're going to look at a process, if they know that we are planning for improvement after tax season, that's going to give them a little bit of that, that emotional boost, if you will, John, and help them get through a pretty tough tax season.
That's really great advice, Amanda. Sometimes we can just have this arbitrary date in our mind, like, okay, once we reach that point, then we can approach it, or then it's going to make sense to, tackle it. But what you're prioritizing is not so much a date as it is people's feelings and mindsets, emotions, energy levels around this topic as well, which I think is very astute of you, because those are things you help firms manage as you guide them through process improvement projects. So I think that's really great
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, firms can't just say, you know what, we'll take care of it after tax season, or we'll start thinking about that after tax season. You got to start thinking about it now. You got to let your staff know that it is top of mind, it is priority for the firm, and start planning for it so that you can execute as quickly as possible after tax season.
That's great. All right, Amanda. Well, I think that concludes our time for this episode. So a little bit shorter of an episode, but we wanted to make this hyper-focused on the area of process, big learnings from this year, and some recommendations from Amanda on 2023. So if you enjoyed this conversation, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. So please go ahead and subscribe. And thanks so much for listening. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, John.